Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Gray here. Welcome back to another video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about probably one of the most debated things in finance. Should you put money into a retirement, or should you put money into buying and owning a home? So these are two pretty big and also they're significant financial goals for anybody, whether that's to retire with, a fat retirement account, or if you want to own your own home or property or multiple properties. It's really a huge goal, and everyone kind of has their preference. Do you want to, retire early? Do you want to retire, with a good retirement account? Or do you want to put money into an investment property or just your primary residence and get that paid off? It's been kind of a big discussion because let's say you're a follower of Dave Ramsey, you know that he says to pay off your house, to own your home, because it is your biggest line item typically. And then he says to invest, I believe it's 15%. So then that begs the question of, what if I don't want to own a home? What if I'm not in the market to buy one? He does say repeatedly to wait until you are financially ready, not depending on what the market is doing. But then it begs the question, is buying a house an investment, or is it just the biggest purchase of your life? Which is kind of where Ramit Sethi comes in, and he says, well, you should look at more of your biggest purchase of your life because it only goes up about 0.6% a year. Then there's a lot of things to consider. So let's get into that in today's episode. I have a few points that I want to talk about. First, let's talk about your long-term financial goals. Do you want to retire, or do you want to own a home? It doesn't have to be either or. You can have both, depending on when you're starting. But it is a good question of, is owning a home important to you? For example, it's not important to me. I don't really want to own a home, but I do know that my wife does. And so thinking about it like that, we probably will end up owning our primary residence at some point. But as of right now, 21, don't really feel a need to buy and own a home right now. Even though it is something that we could possibly do, especially with a few years of dedicated effort, I'd rather put that at this point in our financial journey into retirement because this is the best decade for compound growth. But it is something to consider within your life. Are you mid-20s? Are you mid-40s? Are you married? Are you single? What exactly are you looking for when it comes to how you want your finances to look like in your big picture goals? Because for some people, retirement, that is their big picture goal, is to have a very big retirement account, to have a very, extravagant retirement. And for some people, they want to own a home. And as I said, it doesn't have to be either or, but definitely knowing where you want to go is very important. So as I mentioned, I don't really feel the need to own a home, but I do feel the need to put as much as I can into retirement. And so there is an importance of starting early. If retirement is your goal, you want to start as early as possible. There are ways to start before you turn 18, but once you're 18, you're an adult, you can start on your own, and you can put as much money as you can into retirement. So for this year, $7,000 is the limit into a Roth IRA, and typically that's what I recommend people start with, is a Roth IRA. Unless, however, your employer has a 401k match. So typically when you're younger, you probably won't work at a place that has a 401k match, unless you're in a big chain kind of thing. So that's where I typically recommend get the match as maximum as possible, regardless of what your income is. Max that out as soon as humanly possible, and then max out your Roth IRA. And for most people in their early 20s, that's going to be difficult, maxing out your Roth IRA. And if you're married, you both can have a Roth IRA, max them both out. And then after that, then you can kind of decide, do I want to move into my own 401k? Do I want to get a HSA? Where exactly do I want to go here? But for the most part, starting early and putting as much as you can. In the grand scheme of life, you will learn to adjust to the budget and income that you set for yourself. So if you're making $5,000 a month and you set 10% towards investing, you're not going to feel it. If you set 20%, maybe you'll feel it, but I bet you could learn how to live with 20% of your money going towards investing, or $1,000 going towards investing. And if you live by yourself in a moderate income area, you could probably get away with 25, 30, or 40% invested once you have that emergency fund built up. And so, as I mentioned, there are a few different routes that I recommend people go. So if you are starting early, I do say that, look at the different options. There's 401ks, there's IRAs, traditional and Roth, there's pensions, things like that. Decide if you're going to have a retirement plan, and you should, but if that's your main goal, to have a big retirement, pick which one you want to put your money in. I would, look at a lot of things. As I said, I do my Roth IRA first because I don't have a 401k match. I pick my Roth IRA first, and I'm consistently maxing that out. And then this is the big one that I don't think people do, is calculate how much you actually need to retire. Basic math here, if you have $10 million and you can withdraw 4% safely when you are retired per year, that's an income of $400,000 per year. Now, that sounds like a lot of money now. It's probably going to be a little bit less in the future, but mathematically, if you have $10 million and you take out $400K a year, that is still a fantastic income to live off of. You can have a beautiful retirement and do almost anything you want on a $400K retirement. So I really do recommend that you figure out what your number is. What kind of life do you want to lead? Do you want to travel a lot? Are you staying at home? Do you want to have 15,000 cats? Do you want to have horse stables and the whole shebang? What exactly is your goal? For me, 10 million is about the goal, and there are times where I don't know if I will hit that, but I do know that 10 million is where I'm aiming for, because I do feel that a $400,000 income at the end of my life would be pretty fantastic. Also, I use AI sometimes to help me write these videos, and I just realized that it wrote calculating retirement needs based on current lifestyle and future expectations. An example calculation would be if you invested the maximum contributions from 20 to 65 with an 8.6 return rate, you'd have 3.48 million in your Roth IRA. Sorry, I had to read that just to make sure I said that right, because I want to make sure I get the numbers right for you. But as it said, 20 to 65, if you're maxing that out at about $7,000 a year, or about $550 a month, if you're maxing that out, you will end up with 3.48 million, which is a very great retirement. And you'll probably build up some other assets along the way. And that's not the only account that you can have. You can have as many accounts as you need. So the role of investments in compound earning is, if you're going to start as soon as humanly possible. I would say get rid of your consumer debt, because obviously if you're going to make 10% in the market but you have a credit card at 28%, mathematically that doesn't make sense. So pay off as much debt as you can, build up an emergency fund, and then throw as much as you can at debt, or throw as much as you can at retirement as consistently as possible, to end up with the greatest return. So then let's move on. Buying a home. There are a few perks to owning a home. You're building equity through those mortgage payments as you pay it off. Typically, I do agree with Dave Ramsey that if you're going to buy a home, do a 15-year fixed mortgage rate, for a few reasons. One, you're in debt longer, you pay less interest, and if you pay it off sooner, you pay a lot less interest, and it builds more equity faster. So if you're gonna, own a 15-year fixed mortgage and you pay it off, you're done. And for 15 years, that's about how long you might stay in one place. So if you buy a house at 25, by the time you're 40, it should be paid off. And then you can either sell it and move, or if you're gonna stay there for a while, you're building equity and building a position in the house. And I do want people to think that if you're gonna buy a primary residence, don't consider it as an investment. Don't consider it as, like, I'm buying this to hopefully make money off the deal. It's your primary residence. Just live there. You don't have to keep pouring money into it. And you don't have to keep, building it up so hopes one day you can sell it and turn this huge profit. If you want to do that, buy an investment property. There's a reason there are two different categories. But with that, there is potential appreciation for the value of the home. So as time goes on, the home will become more valuable because there's more people in the world. The housing market is continually growing and going up in value. So I do think if you're going to own a home, there is benefits to it financially. But I think if you're looking at a primary residence, consider it that, a primary residence. I will say there's some stability and security in owning your own home, right? Because if you own your own home and it's completely paid off, your biggest line item in your budget typically is completely gone. And you can adequately say you have no debt, and your biggest bill is off the picture, and you can put that towards investing. So I would say there's a little arbitrage, a little math jujitsu you might have to do to figure out, okay, if I pay my house off early, but the money that I would have invested is actually being put towards paying off my house early, am I really actually saving money? But at the end of the day, to have that security, to know that, hey, my house is completely paid off, I don't have a bill that I need to hit this month. Yeah, you're gonna have property taxes and utilities and stuff like that, and homeowners insurance, but in the grand scheme, comparatively, what would be $1,000, $2,000, $4,000 mortgage off the board because you worked so hard early on to pay it off. And then there definitely is some tax advantages to owning an account, or to owning a home, but there's also tax advantages to retirement. But I did want to mention this here is, depending on what you own, how much you own, and what you owe on the house, you could get specific tax advantages. So before buying a home, let's consider a few things. And I am going to use my current income to kind of work with these numbers. So let's say you have an income of $60,000. You should really only get a house worth about $250,000, where the average housing in America is at $416,000, or in other words, way too much. It is very expensive to buy a house today. So if this is something you want to do, you need to be dedicated to this goal. I will say that. But down payment requirements. Let's consider this. If you're going to buy a house, typically it is recommended to have 20% once you avoid PMI. And then also, that way you know you can save up and you can put money into this house. So, if we're at a house of $250,000, that's $50,000 that I need to have saved up. Or in other words, almost a year's worth of my income saved up in order to go buy a home, which is going to take multiple years to save up. So it is something to really consider of buying a home. There are some other options. I know Zillow just came out with a 1% down payment, and there's a lot of things to consider when buying a home, and I say do your research, do your own way of thinking about it, and always take a grain of salt. Obviously, I don't own a home, so maybe I'm just crazy, but if you're gonna own one, own it and pay it off as quickly as possible, because it is your biggest line item. It's probably the biggest asset you will ever own, and I just think that there's a lot more money that needs to go into it than I think most people realize. So with that being said, if you rent, a lot of the things, we're in a renter's market right now, but when you rent, a lot of things are taken care of. For example, the floor in my other room is completely coming out of the ground right now. I have no idea what's causing it, but the actual floor is coming up out of the ground. It's insane, but I don't have to pay for it. If anything, I think I'm gonna get money knocked off my rent. I'm just kidding. If anything, I'm gonna be okay. I pay the same rent. I get a place to live. It's fine. But for the homeowners, they actually have to pay for that. They have to pay to fix their house, or else it's going to fall over. So they've got to take care of their house, and so they're putting all their money into it. So that is something to consider, is a lot of the maintenance and the upkeep costs that go into owning and maintaining a home. It does make it difficult, because what actually is a $250,000 house, after that, water heater explodes, or your AC goes out and you have to replace that, or you're an idiot and decide to put solar on your house for some reason. Things like that, it adds up. Over that 15 years, you might end up paying double or even triple for a house mathematically. And then the other thing is location. So, and what are your long-term needs? So if I had a friend a while back, he said that, he was gonna buy a house right near where he was going to college. My issue with that, and I told him this, was you're gonna leave immediately. Like, by the time you've built any equity position in the house, you're gonna leave in about 4 years. And he said, well, I could keep it and just move back. And I go, you could, but then it's not your house. It's an investment property. It's a rental. There's a difference. And so I think if you're gonna save up that money to then spend it on buying your primary residence, to buy it in a place you're gonna be there for a while. So that's why I don't typically recommend that young people buy houses. And that's why I'm not gonna buy a house, because I don't know if I'm gonna be here forever. I don't know where my life is gonna take me. So renting for now is both cheaper and a safer option for me. But for you, consider at least those options of where you're gonna be. Are you gonna be in the same place for 15 years, at least? And something to consider there. There is a lot of math involved, but that is something I wanted everyone to consider, is retirement versus owning their own home. I think it's probably one of the most talked about financial dilemmas. And I think it's completely personal. It's up to you. What is your goal financially? Do you want to own a home? Do you want to retire early? Do you want to retire, super wealthy? Do you want to find somewhere in the middle where you're safe, you're comfortable, you own your home, and you can leave something to your children in that way? Things like that. I mean, it's kind of just up to you. I will say I'm going to link down a couple calculators, both for housing cost, what houses you can afford, retirement account. I'm going to leave a couple calculator links down below of things that I use to kind of like when I'm planning out what I want to invest or save, and see, put in your numbers, see what works for you. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you guys have enjoyed, drop a like and comment down below what I should talk about next. I really like these longer videos that kind of talk about, more important things and more financial questions that people have. So if you have a financial question or anything you want me to talk about, definitely drop it down in the comments down below. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Adios.